everybody, and welcome to another Transition to Greatness show. I'm really excited about this show for a few reasons. One is that I've been trying to get together with people who have a lot of questions. My dog is getting into the picture. I've been wanting to work with people who have a lot of great questions to ask. And the person that we're going to do a show with today, there's a lot of layers to this guy. He's a terrific guy. We've actually known each other since, my God, 7th grade. In junior high school and in high school, he was one of, get out of the picture there, buddy. This guy was really admired and looked up to in both high school and junior high school. A lot because he was such a natural star athlete. But on the other hand, he was just a genuinely nice guy that just people looked up to. He was a man of power. And we talked about this before the show, that he didn't go around realizing he had this power or that power. He was just a regular guy, but he was really admired and looked up to in both junior high school and high school. He was a great athlete. And he hung around with all the guys that I hung around with, except that I was 5'4" until senior year in high school. And Max and my other friends were all 6'4" or 6'2", whatever it was. But hey, okay. So, and what a great kicker. I mean, who had a field goal kicker? Well, we did at Roosevelt High School in Yonkers, New York. I want to welcome Max Kremer. Welcome to the show, Max.
Thanks, Bruce. It's a pleasure to be here, and really interesting after all these years kind of aligning myself. That's one of the very few things good about Facebook, is that you get to interact with people that you haven't seen for years. I have made some reacquaintances over the years, and it's been really nice. And, in this time when things are really kind of tenuous between in the country and between people, it's nice to meet people that I've grown up with that are like-minded, which is kind of the reason we're doing this show today.
Absolutely. And we were both at the 40th reunion, we talked a little bit there, and then you realize that it's not, everybody's so different from the way they were, the way they are now, and who knows who could get along and who can't get along. And it's a real beautiful thing that, Max, you and I have gotten along. We have some things in common. You're an educated guy. You're a smart guy. You know a lot about what's going on in the world. And that's what made this show with you more interesting, because I was either going to have someone come on the show who really didn't know anything at all about what was going on behind the scenes other than what they were seeing on mainstream media. But you know a lot. And this made it even more interesting to do a show with someone who knows quite a bit. So I really am happy to have you on the show. And we're going to have a nice interaction here. If I could just get this dog out of my elbow, we'll have a nice interaction here talking about really what's going on in the world and things that people just aren't seeing by watching mainstream media. See, that's the big thing. There's a whole lot of brainwashing. People, what do you think? If you watch mainstream media, you only hear one thing and one thing only, and that's how terrible and how awful this president is. And then there's a whole bunch of other people, around 75 million at the minimum, who went out of their way to vote for this president. And there's probably 100 million people out there who like the guy, and there must be something to it. It can't be that he's a child molester, hates women, he's got a beautiful wife. It can't be that he's a horrible father and husband. He's got a beautiful family. I mean, what better family can someone have? What better wife can someone have than what he has? That, to me, is an amazing thing. It shows a lot. No matter how much someone talks, if they have a great family, they have a great wife, and they have great surroundings around them, that's really where it's at. And I was a Democrat up until March of this year. And I met,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. I was open to all the same brainwashing that so many people are that are watching CNN and MSNBC and ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, all that stuff. I was under the same effects as they were. And I'll give you a quick example. I first realized something was really wrong when before President Trump was elected, the mainstream media was spreading stories about him that if he gets elected, you don't want to vote for him because if he gets elected, he's going to start building condominiums in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
I said, well, he's a real rotten son of a gun, and I'll never, ever vote for him. If he's going to build condominiums. So it took a while to realize that was just brainwashing and the worst lies and just awfulness. So in the last 8 or 9 months, I've learned a lot. I've gone to school. I've been studying what's going on beneath the surface for 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes when I get up in the morning and sometimes until I'm at night listening and learning. So I've learned a heck of a lot. And it's interesting that when we meet up with people that don't know so much, you keep hearing the same responses when they're Biden supporters. So let me hear a little bit about you and a little bit about your background as far as how this whole election process has gone down for you and what you're understanding about it.
Well, just to give you a little background to my political views, I think the last time I was a Democrat was when John Kennedy ran for office. And, you know, as a kid, you think of Democrats, it's democracy. And of course, it's good. But, you know, if you pay attention, you listen, and you keep an open mind, you start realizing you see the differences. So I didn't really follow politics that much. I mean, obviously I did when Watergate and stuff like that, but you know, you don't really peel back the layers. It's very peripheral, and you basically are listening to mainstream media because back then we didn't have social media, so you can get some of the things that most people don't want you to know. But then you just kind of go along, and as you get older and you have a family and you have a business, you become a little bit more aware of the government having their hands in your pocket. So, and also education was key because with kids, you're always thinking about, okay, I want the best education for my kids. We happened to have moved. I lived in California for a number of years. I left here in 1974.
You saw each other out there.
Right. The Improv, yeah. So I bought my house in a little town called Simi Valley, a sleepy little town, kind of like Mayberry, but incidentally, it was right across the street from the Reagan Library. So it was a relatively conservative. It was, you know, mostly blue collar, but you know, it's changed a little bit, but it was mostly I would say moderately conservative area. But that's when I got introduced to Rush Limbaugh. And I started listening to him religiously, and I really liked what he had to say, and I liked his message. And again, you can hear somebody talk, but people hear and listening, not synonymous terms. And you start paying attention. You see how the things that are happening really affect your life. But so I continued with that. You know, I voted Republican for as long as I can remember. My ex-wife was thought like me, my mother-in-law, you know, a lot of the people I surrounded myself with. So I didn't really have to go to war a lot with people that I knew. So it was interesting. I moved back to New York probably about 8 years ago. And I was having dinner with my aunt that I hadn't seen in 20 years. My aunt lived in San Fernando Valley in California. My uncle was a real heavyweight in the television industry. So they were real Hollywood liberals. I mean, real Hollywood liberals, like the Robert De Niro Hollywood liberal. And I remember I came back, I was having dinner with her, at her house, and I was looking for work, and she said to me, why don't you look in the New York Times? And I said, I won't read the Times. So she stopped cold and looked at me. She goes, you're a Republican? And I went, yeah, not only am I a Republican, but I'm a knowledgeable Republican. So let's do each other a favor, and let's not really let politics get in the way of our relationship, because you and I are never going to agree. So let's just keep it, at arm's length. Well, if you know a lot of Democrats who are staunch Democrats, they won't let you do that, because if you don't think like them, they'll just pound you. And so we probably haven't talked for the last 7 years just because of that, which is crazy. But that's to me, that's been pretty typical. I've experienced a lot of that these last 6 or 7 months. You're online, you express your views, other people express your views, but you can't just express your views without getting really bombarded with, like, you're a racist, you're a misogynist. And I go, you don't even know me. You're saying that to me because that this is what I think, this is who I like, but I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what you think. That's your prerogative. It's the beauty of this country. And that really started alienating me with a lot of people that I've known for years, that I've grown up with. And it's sad, but it is what it is. And someone once said, would you stop being friends with someone for political reasons? And the answer was, of course not. But I would for moral reasons. And that to me was a big significance. And I really feel that the difference between the way you and I think and some of our other friends think, it's not political, it's more of a moral issue. And
When I started hearing that people were having problems when they were putting Trump signs on their front lawns, I wondered about that. And I came to realize that if you're watching mainstream media, you're pounded 24 hours a day with these
right,
negative messages about this horrible demon, this horrible devil. And in the last 8 months, you're in 24 hours a day because their message, stay home, don't go out. And all you're going to do is you're going to watch this mainstream media and get
right.
this brainwashing pounded into your brain. And the sad part is that they're not the least bit open to hearing another side. And that's when the friendships break up, because all of a sudden they're not going to talk to you. You're a Trump supporter, like you're the devil. It's because they're watching all this TV.
Well, unfortunately, and I think we can both agree that when he announced that he was going to run for president, everybody thought the same thing. Really, Donald Trump's going to run for president. What kind of chance does he have against 17 or 18 seasoned politicians? And I watched the debates, and a lot of times I cringed, going, really, because I was so used to what I guess we would call a professional politician. So this guy was a real breath of fresh air, where he would actually just speak his mind, and he wasn't so politically correct. And a lot of, obviously, the media hated him for that. But it was probably a love-hate relationship, because the ratings probably went up tremendously because of him. So, but I think that a lot of people, and I can really attest to this by just talking to a lot of people, they don't vote the issues. They vote the personality. And that's really unfortunate. He is brusque. He is not a narcissist. We all know that. No one's commending him on that. But the reality is I've always said years ago, and I remember when Ross Perot was running for president, I said, that's what this country needs. It needs a businessman to run this country, because you run it like a big corporation. And what you do is you surround yourself with smart people, because you can't be all things to all people, but you got to be able to be a good leader and give good direction. And so I took a step back from his personality and thought about his successes and some of his failures, but who in business hasn't had failures? And, the key to me in being successful in life is not that you fail or you start a business. Can you start again and rebuild? And I personally have gone through that myself. So I admire anybody that can actually do that. So I really think that most people tend to vote the personality. And subsequently, I think that the people that voted for, Joe Biden, they didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump because they didn't like him. Because
Exactly.
you can't honestly say that they think that Joe Biden's going to be a good presidential candidate. It's ridiculous.
Just today, I was listening to a radio show, and they were talking about ratings on Fox. And as you know, Fox was known to be a little bit more conservative, well, pretty conservative, and a supporter of Trump. That's kind of the way they were known. Whether that was true or not, we don't know. But certainly, something happened election night. All of my friends were sitting on Fox because we certainly weren't going to watch MSNBC or CNN. And we were sitting around Fox, and we heard things on Fox that were very disturbing. We heard things about a poll closes at 8, and the result was in at 8:10.
Right.
California poll closed at 8 their time, 11 our time. At 10 minutes after 11, it was announced that all of California, the biggest state in the country, had gone to Biden. So something was very off. And then they started saying that Congress had gone back into the Democratic power. And this was like at 8:30. And I think a whole bunch of us looked at each other and said, what is going on? And
Right.
the interesting thing is we got on the internet, we started saying, what is going on here? What is going on here? And within minutes, the word Newsmax came up on everybody's phone, and
Right.
millions upon millions upon millions of people instantly switched from Fox to Newsmax, including us.
And me, right.
They
as
were,
well.
they were the only station that was not announcing Biden the winner by 10 o'clock that night.
Right.
So it was a shock. So today I was listening to someone, and he talked about the actual ratings for each of the hosts on Fox. And, you have Hannity, and, they get, Hannity and the other guy get 6-7 million a night. Well, and Ingraham and all those people, they all lost about 50% of their audience.
Yeah.
After the election. And then when I can never think of his name, the guy at 8 o'clock, the collegiate looking name,
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker, he went after Sidney Powell, showed really ugly pictures of her, called her names, called her, a liar. And then I think if whoever he held after that knew that was wrong, knew that he may have been under the control of something that wasn't allowing him to say right things at that time. So there's a lot going on under the surface. That's why we're here to talk about that. I love being able to talk about issues that are troubling everybody. And I know that we've talked and you've had a lot of great questions. You know a lot, which is wonderful. But you also have a lot of great questions that perhaps, we can talk out.
Well, since we actually had that conversation, I've dug a little bit deeper, and I've, some of the things you've sent me, and, and it's very contagious once you get into this, and it's almost like, okay, I got to stop because you spend way too much time doing it. But it's really hard because it's really something out of a movie. You can't believe that things like this could actually be going on in this country. And I was just listening to, some of the videos, watching the Giuliani video from Michigan and the people testifying, and you're just going, and how could you not believe it? I mean, why would these people come forward, that actually
put their lives in risk?
Yeah. So, with that said, and I know I've questioned you a few times where, some of the pundits would say, well, this is his last shot. When is the Kraken going to be released, and what is it? And, I guess a lot of people don't understand that putting together the evidence, if you will, for such a vast fraud takes a lot of time. And if you don't get it right the first time, you don't get a second chance to do it again. So they have to be pretty buttoned up. And the fact that everybody's going to be looking at this, scrutinizing this with, very sharply, you really have to have your act together. So, and I've heard, a lot of people talking about what's going on. And as you can appreciate, you don't know what to believe. You don't know what's a hoax, because the internet is full of people writing stuff just to arouse the public. So that's where you kind of came in, and you kind of told me some things, and then I started reading about it and trying to connect the dots. So one of the things
that's what it's all about. It's not about me telling people and saying, you better believe this, and you better, not at all. I'm just bringing up what I'm learning. I'm researching 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the pieces are all coming together for me. And I just feel this tremendous need to help people that are in such fear that we're going to go into a Biden type environment with, he's already said, listen, if I'm the president, you're going to have to wear masks until the end of April. And businesses are going to be closed down. I'm saying, oh my God, who wants to live that way?
Well, it's interesting because they're having rallies all over the world, that especially with the vaccines now. They go, we're not going to take the vaccine. And who is it? Congressman Delaney said that one of the way to incentivize people to take the vaccine is to give them a $1,500 stimulus check. Now, you got to bribe people. And of course, a lot of people who are, down and out and really can use the funds, they're going to opt to take it in lieu of standing up for what they feel is right. So, that's
the difference between the leftist radical approach and the more conservative approach, because there is a reset coming, and there will be money coming, not because people are being nice guys or manipulative. It's that we've been living under a banking system that's been a very against the law system. Sure. Every week I get an invitation to get a credit card, 29%, 34%. I mean, that used to be against the law years ago. And of course, they've manipulated the system so it's not against the law. But the banking system we've been under has been an illegal one, and one that's coming to an end. So when they say that incentive check, yes, if under Biden-esque type system, under the leftist type system, if you take the vaccine, we will pay you money.
Right.
And if you don't take the vaccine, you won't get any money. You won't be able to travel. Well, that's very communist Chinese, isn't it?
Sure.
That's what they're doing there. If you don't do the right thing, if you get X marks, you can't travel, you can't go anywhere, you can't spend any money. You're a trap rat there. Well, hey, they're trying to do the exact same thing here. But here it's going to be very different. Because once we get rid of the swamp, once we drain the swamp, there's going to be enough money, and you can ask me where we're going to get this money from. There'll be enough money to neutralize the national debt. There'll be enough money to forgive people's bank loans, credit card loans, school loans, even mortgage loans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very excellent possibility that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start hearing about a term called the Jubilee. And the Jubilee has been going on for literally 1,000 years. Every 50 years, people that have been in debt to a person, they just forget about that debt and they let them start clean. Well, that's going to happen with us as well once we drain the swamp and we remove the people that are trying to enslave us, which would be, it's obvious, we're wearing masks. I went into Walmart today. I might have seen 200 people walking around. I was the only one that refused to wear a mask.
Sure.
So
Sure.
they've got us under control.
Oh, yeah.
They've got us thinking, I have to wear a mask. We heard the message. If you don't wear a mask, you're un-American. You're trying to get people sick. I said, wait a second. I've been investigating this mask for 8 months. They don't work. Fauci says they don't work. Why are we still having to wear masks? Because it's all about manipulation and control.
Well, it's yeah, and it's at the end, it's all about the Benjamins. We know that China's got their hands in everybody's pockets, or the other way around, everybody's got their hands in China's pockets. So we look, it's pretty obvious that a lot of these Democrats are being paid off by China. Otherwise, things would be a lot different. But so my question to you is, I'm reading all this stuff, and I think I said this to you that day when we spoke. There is an abundance amount of proof, and some people are just going, no, like the video in Detroit. It's blatantly obvious what they were doing, but there are people going, no, that's pretty natural. So there are people who, no matter what you do, are never going to be convinced. No matter who you talk to, they're going to say the same thing. So I asked you, at what point does the tide turn? And when do people start going, okay, they're right, this is really what's going to happen, and this is what we need to do about it? And I know like more people in Congress are starting to see what's going on. I know 20 House of Representatives Republicans, reached out to Barr and said, hey, you got to investigate this. Enough is enough. So it's starting to turn a little bit, but we're getting close to the end line here. And December 14th is not that far away. January 20th is really close too. So we can't wait for him to be inaugurated for the investigation to start, which is what a lot of people are talking about. So
you're going to eventually hear that 70% of Congress is under the control of the swamp, Republican and Democrat.
I believe that.
So when it all gets exposed, see what's happening now. All my friends are saying, when's it going to come to an end? When's it going to come to an end? It's not a sitcom. Start, 22 minutes later, happy ending. Right. It's not a movie. Personality arc, ugly in the beginning, a beautiful ending at the end. It's not a book. This is World War III. World War III. Except there's no bombs, there's no tanks, there's no shooting. This is a very sophisticated war on America. And so when you have something huge like this isn't just some anarchist trying to take over. This is not just some, small group. This effort is being financed by people way on the east side of the world, where they've gathered up a lot of money from trade, and they said, now it's time. So that's what this huge effort is. And that's why, and I heard something, I'm going to go more into your question. I heard something today that blew my mind about how this all happened. The Democrats, the leftists, whatever, the swamp chose 8 counties in our country that if they can control these 8 counties, they can win an election.
Right.
In Las Vegas, in Nevada, perfect example, right? Atlanta in Georgia, okay? Milwaukee in Wisconsin, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania.
Maricopa in Arizona.
These Maricopa County in Arizona. These are all areas where a tremendous amount of population is.
Right.
And so these dark forces, and it's not government, because government means we elected them. It's not government at all. It's people that are controlling government that we don't know who they are. We're learning, they're coming out and being exposed, but we don't know officially who they are. They've been called many names, but we really, really don't know who they are. So here they are, they're trying to take over the diamond of the world, the United States. And this was their big effort. And so they said to themselves, if we literally put billions and billions of dollars into these 8 counties and pay off, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want anybody, coming after me. We all know who these guys are. We all know who the elected politicians are that are Democrat, that don't seem to know what's going on with all this fraud in the election. And they have no idea. So that's because they've been highly influenced. I won't say how. You can figure that out for yourself. But these 8 counties can determine the world. And that's what they went by. And each of these 8 counties was mass fraud in the elections. And if us Americans didn't stand up to this, they would have won. Can you imagine Biden getting 80 million votes? Sleepy, you know what they did? They told him to stay in his basement and don't say anything. We got this under control.
In sports, we use a term, you don't play to win, you play not to lose. And that's what they did with him.
Because they knew, they knew 30 million votes were being shipped in from outside the country. Now, what we didn't know until recently was the machines counting the votes were sending that information to Germany, to Spain. What? They're counting them in Germany and Spain? How can that be possible? So all this had to happen. It had to happen because this needed to be exposed. And the evidence is so huge. Getting back to your question, the evidence is so huge and so overwhelming that there's no chance that, here's the deal. If the states do what they're supposed to do, take back certification and do a recount, that may or may not make sense because there has to really be a whole new election with legal votes only. How did Biden get 80 million votes? 50 of them came over from China. Maybe he would have gotten 45, 50 million votes to Trump's. Trump would have done a lot more than 75.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Instant after instant after instant, they kept saying they took 100,000 from Trump and gave it to Biden. So he probably would have had 80 or 90 million votes. And Trump and Biden probably would have finished at about 50.
So what's mind-boggling is it was so blatant. It was like, dude, do you not think I'm not going to notice that? And yet they were probably so cocky that they didn't have the horses to deal with it, or that, too many people would just go, just concede, walk away.
It was like you playing Commerce. You knew you were going to beat them. Okay, team. Okay, coach, back then. You knew you were going to beat them. And I'm talking about a high school in Yahoo. I know you know that, but maybe these guys don't. So, listen, what they were telling people when they were giving those checks to everyone, 5,000 here, 5,000 there, is don't worry. You're not going to get caught. No one was ever caught before. We've been doing this for decades. Take the money, go buy yourself a new car, go on a vacation, take the money. Don't worry. Oops.
But was it done on such a large scale before? It has.
No, because they got shattered when Hillary didn't win.
Right.
And that woke them up that the dark side doesn't necessarily win everything that they think they're going to win. So they had to triple up their effort. And that's why they got people like, I'm not going to mention big companies, social
I
media
know.
companies,
I,
putting up billions and billions of dollars to influence the election. Google, if you did searches before the election, nothing would come up that would help you vote for a Republican.
well, they had experts testify in Congress that social media can control up to 15% of the population votes, which 15% of 360 million is a hell of a lot of votes.
Oh yeah.
So
So
yeah, I think that's a pretty well-known fact.
yeah,
But again, it comes down to people didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump because they don't like him. People don't know the issues. They voted personalities.
and they don't know Trump because they were bombarded with ugliness
Right.
24 hours a day on mainstream media, calling him every name in the book. You would too if you were watching and you were home and you weren't working and all you had to do was watch the news 24 hours a day. Bang, bang, bang. How horrible this man is. I would have felt the same.
So tell me next steps. I mean, I know, there's a lot of discovery. Judges are now starting to give them more access to the voting machines to do some sort of forensics. What's next? I mean, you're saying that they knew this was going to happen. They had it planned. They had to play it out because that was the only way they can get caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
This is the only way to stop it. This needs to stop. They can't take over America. We can't be stupid anymore. And we have to get all the brains involved. Because, by the way, the dark side, the swamp, they pay a lot of brilliant people to come up with these plans. Yep. Don't ever shortchange the swampers because they got the sharpest people working for them.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, we have to counter that. And we have to recognize that this is not just for Trump. This is not just to help Trump. This is to turn our lives from heading in a direction of being controlled by the swamp and having to wear these masks all the time. I mean, I can't wear a mask for 5 minutes. Right. I can't stand it. I know you feel the same.
Yeah. Well, most times I forget to wear it.
Yeah, I was in Walmart today and I spent a little bit of money there, but I didn't wear my mask. So go over that question one more time because I want everybody to hear exactly what your concern was, and then we'll talk more about it.
Well, the powers that be, these people have planned this out for so long. So much money has been invested. They've brainwashed so many people. They control the mainstream media. So how do we overcome this? I know there are people stepping up and putting themselves, on the line to dispute what they're saying, but do we have the horses to really rally everybody around so we can actually get this thing resolved and, put Trump back in office because he was, elected, as we both know, legitimately?
We have one thing on our side: the Constitution. The Constitution was written 250 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever it was, for just a situation like this.
Well, right, but let me put it to you this way. The Bible was written and more people have been killed for religious wars than anything else. So,
well,
I get it.
The Constitution spells out exactly how this election goes down. It decided others too, but here's basically what happens. If the local politicians, if the Democratic local politicians don't do what they're legally supposed to do, they will be taken to a more Supreme Court. If they do what they're supposed to do and we have an election, the right thing will happen. But if they refuse, then these matters will be taken to the Supreme Court, just like everything else. If you had a case and you were so sure and you got turned down, like they're getting turned down at some of them, and you get turned down again, and you say, I'm taking this to the Supreme Court. You have every right. Well, so does the people that are representing the United States and the president. They are going to take illegal acts by local government, which is certifying an election that was smitten with fraud. And they certified it because, hey, someone invested in them and they have to go follow all the way through. They didn't think they were going to get caught, but they have to follow all the way through. So everything that's going on, whether they align themselves with the truth or not, everything goes up to the Supreme Court.
So here's the concern.
Go ahead.
Is that, yes, it'll get to the Supreme Court, but will it get to the Supreme Court and them making a decision in time to change this around? Because once he's through the inauguration, yeah, they can go out and do their due diligence and make sure something like this never happens. But by then it's too late. Yes.
So here's what happens. The Supreme Court here's all the information. They see all the fraud, and they go, yes, tremendous amount of fraud. It's irreversible. It's you can't refute it. Tremendous amount of fraud. We all know that there are 6 conservative judges and 3 liberal judges. So they're going to decide, not on the election, because they don't really do that. What they're going to do, and this is part of the Constitution, they're going to send it up to Congress. And here's why people in the know, people that know the Constitution, people that know how these things work, people that looked into this 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, they know how this is going to end up. The Supreme Court does not want to decide on the future of our country. It's not what they do. They hand it over to Congress. Now, in Congress, each state gets 1 vote. It doesn't get carried on forever.
Right.
They get together, and each state gets 1 vote. Right now, Republicans/conservatives control 30 states. Liberals control 20. There's your answer.
Right. So the thing I mentioned to you the other day is, there is going to be riots and anarchy in the streets. You know that. So, and you said that they've already accounted for that. So is he going to declare martial law like Flynn and McCurney said they should do?
If he has to, he will. It's his duty. We are in a war. There's been no greater threat to our land. World wars were fought elsewhere. This is being fought in America. So it's not a terrible thing to announce martial law, especially if you're being invaded like we are. We're just not being invaded by bombs. Right?
So what do you hear is going to be the repercussions to a country like China that not only destroyed our economy but created this pandemic? There's got to be some kind of retribution, and not just from us, but from a lot of countries that probably side with us.
Yes, a lot of countries are going to stop trading with China because they all know one thing: they don't make great products.
Right. They make cheap
products. Apart.
Right.
You remember you used to see Made in America? That stuff lasted for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Nobody knows a product out of China that lasts more than a couple of years, 6 months, 2 months, a week. So a lot of countries are going to stop trading with China. They're already trading with Vietnam and Cambodia and all those kind of places. Okay. Now, you asked that what's going to happen when people riot? Well, it's really interesting because I don't know if you ever knew this, but when they were demonstrating, and the Democrats didn't even acknowledge all the rioting, what went along with it was ads in Craigslist looking for rioting actors,
Right.
demonstrating actors, $15, $18 an hour. And young people who were desperate enough took the bait. And in the beginning, when they were arrested, or they weren't arrested, but if they were arrested, they were told they'd get released, and they did. But at the same time, every single one of them got their picture taken and were on video, okay? Then all of a sudden, towards the end, and this is why you're not seeing rioting so much now, just a little tiny little bit, is there came a point where the police took a much greater role, didn't allow them to be released, and kept them in jail where they are now. So the people that are financing the future riots, they have much fewer people to choose from because all those people are locked up. And guess what? They're going to stay locked up. They broke the law. And guess who else broke the law? All those radical Democratic people, some ladies who marched in protests. It's against the 14th Amendment to do that. You can't be an elected official and march in a demonstration. They have all the information they need, fire them, and ban them forever from ever being a part of office again. Now, I want to go to this last point here. You know, and most people know, that in the last several months, Trump has brought back all the military from all the countries. There might be a tenth or even less of the amount of military that is left in another country than when he started serving in office. Where are those soldiers? I heard where they are. They're in those cities. They are going to be there to protect us. So if people think that those rioters are going to run and ruin our nation, they're going to be arrested and sent to Gitmo down in Cuba, never to be seen again, because they will be breaking federal laws. And because they'll be on camera, they'll be caught red-handed, they will have a quick and short military trial and be sent down to Cuba where you'll never see them again. And some of the people are realizing that this is true, and they may not be willing to take part in these riots in the future.
So the question is, and I asked you this the other day, how do you cut off the head of the snake?
Which snake are we talking about?
Well, I mean, you know, these guys are just the minions.
Yes.
Obviously someone's pulling the strings. Someone's
great question. And this is why it's going to take longer than people want. Let's go back to the election. They're going to easily arrest all the people on video. They broke federal laws.
Right.
You can't claim, I didn't know. They broke federal laws. They took money. They broke federal laws. There'll be leniency if they tell the law who was above them. They'll arrest them. There'll be leniency if they tell who is above them, so on and so on and so on, until they get to the top of the food tree, the money tree, and that's why it's going to take so long, because they want the big fish.
But they probably already know who they are, though.
Exactly. But everybody says you have to have proof. You have to have proof. Well, if you have a lot of hound dogs telling on you, and you have a lot of video.
They didn't have proof when they tried to impeach Trump. They didn't have any proof.
Well, you're right, because they didn't have proof.
Right.
They could do all the impeaching they want.
There's still 2 years of trials and impeachments. So, I mean, all we really want to do is identify these people and put them out of business.
You know, with Russia, what they were doing is they were saying, look here at Russia, look here, look at all the bad things going on here at Russia. So you wouldn't look at what's going on in China. And you wouldn't look at the way China was influencing people like the majority leader of Congress and the different leaders and the different corporations that they were influencing. So don't look over here. Look over here at Russia. Don't look over here how we're going to be changing your country.
Sure. So interesting point. I was reading the other day that Kamala Harris has not resigned her Senate seat. And I don't know if that is protocol that you wait till you're inaugurated, or you do that now while you're spending all your time running around the country, you know, promoting your, you know, vice president-elect duties. Or she's waiting because she doesn't know.
A lot of people aren't going to like what I have to say next, but I'm just reporting what I saw and what has been clearly shown on video. Everyone saw Biden jump out of his car and wave to everybody and walk into the hospital. How do you walk into the hospital with a broken leg or a broken ankle or hairline fracture? You're an athlete. I mean, if you didn't ever get hurt like that, you knew someone who did. You're not walking on that one day later. You can't just walk in like this. Something is not right, because he had a boot on.
Right.
You guys need to investigate what it means to have a boot on your leg. There's another picture of Miss Harris in sweatpants with a square something at her ankle. It's coming out of her sweatpants, a very square thing that's coming out of her ankle. All you folks need to look into what that means. You need to find out for yourself what it means when people have boots and squares on their ankles.
Okay. All right. So, well, this is pretty informative. So what do you think what does next week hold?
The next week holds much higher profile arrests. It's already happening. You're going to see the CIA, the guy is going to be arrested. The CIA and the FBI, they are from 80% down to the bottom, incredible, wonderful Americans. But those tops have been terribly influenced and are ruining their reputations and have broken many laws, treason up and down. They're all going to be arrested and removed. And it will be brought back to the way it should have been. But there's going to be a lot of high profile arrests, and things are going to come out, continue to come out. You know, you said, how much evidence do they need? Well, they hardly need a tenth of what they have to bring this to the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and the FBI. And if they refuse to recognize it, something pretty drastic is going to happen, because that's why people aren't getting these several large-scale, high-profile arrests, because so far, for whatever reason that we have to look into, and for everybody else has to look into, they're not going after the arrests of these people that have broken such laws and have tried to overtake our country. So you're going to see a lot in the next week or so. It's really going to be spectacular. And maybe in a couple of weeks, Max, maybe we could do another show and talk about what's going on.
Florida.
Yes, that'd be great. You know, you from Florida and me from Florida, we could still be in our own separate homes.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks from now, we'll do another show if you like, and we'll talk about what's gone on the last couple of weeks.
That'd be great. Yeah, this was great, Bruce.
I want to thank you, Max Kremer, for being on the show. Great guy, and I'm glad we're getting you know, hey, it's never too late to make good friends and to have people that you can connect with and talk to. And you've turned out to be one of those guys. So thanks again. Thank everybody for listening in. And we will catch you again another time.
See ya.
Take care.
Thanks, Bruce.
Bye-bye.